Okay, December 6th, 2021, going on an updated studio tour. Right now we're in the live room, which is not very live right now. And we're just going to see the progress on moving all the rack gear from alongside the console to behind the console. So let's take a tour. Going through the door, as you can see. And this is how it looks when you're coming in through this door. We have another door on the other side of the room. And those are the rack gear, obviously. They're in custom-made racks that I had made many years ago. I modified them from one big rack to two individual rack systems with 2 bays apiece, so 4 bays total. I am putting together a hybrid studio with an analog front-end console here, Allen Heath, 32 channels, and a newly acquired digital mixer that I bought late April, and that's the PreSonus 32S model, and that will be the hub for the whole studio. Plan on doing the front end coming through here, if needed, that is. We can use the PreSonus also. And then going into the PreSonus, which will be the AD-DA converters, which will go into the DAW, which will eventually be sitting over here with a laptop and a bigger monitor, which I will install somewhere over here. Okay, so newly updated is the patch bay system. I have one more patch bay to install, many more wires to hook up, however. I have another patch bay sitting over there on top of the racks. And I'll just give you a brief tour of behind the scenes here. Going out the other door. The lights are off in this room, so it might be a little dark. And this is what we have hooked up so far. Got a long way to go. There's many wires you can see there sitting on the power amp that are just not hooked up yet. All the wires will be running under the floor. I have the floor pulled up right here. So that it's not a tripping hazard, and plus it wouldn't be very good for those wires either. Okay, so now we're coming back in here. Let me just give you the opposite view here of the rack. And that's what we got with the rack system. And I'll just give you a quick rundown. I did this in previous videos. We have older vintage gear here for the most part. There's 2 DAT machines there, which is older technology. I don't think anybody's using those anymore. Who knows? A digital 8-track down there that I used to sync to a 1-inch tape machine running at 30 IPS. No longer have that machine. Over here, the equipment that I will be utilizing, things like the Eventide H3000, Yamaha SBX 900. We have an ART SGE guitar unit from the 90s, late 80s, not sure which. 2 oral exciters, one is Type C, the other one is Type 3. Type 3 is kind of rare. A lot more parameters to control. 7 per channel, as you can see with the 7 knobs per channel there. Headphone amp down there, some other goodies which are just temporarily sitting there. We won't go into that right now. We have a Yamaha Rev 7 there. That's definitely vintage. Lexicon PCM 42 digital delay. Under that is the Korg A3 multiprocessor and guitar effects. We have a TC 1144 preamplifier, which basically is a 4-band fully parametric EQ. We have 2 audio noise gates there. The top one is frequency selective gates, meaning a high pass and low pass filter. So you can zero in on the frequencies that you want to gate out. For instance, like a hi-hat bleeding into a snare mic, you can get that out of there really well with those filters. On this side, we have a guitar tuner on the top there. And we have a blank space, of course. And then we have 2 acquired units that I got last week. The Warm Audio Tone Beast, which is an API clone. And also the Warm Audio WA73 EQ. I hooked them up just yesterday. I didn't try them with a microphone, although I did test them originally when I got them. Plugged my guitar in there. They just sound unbelievably amazing, how great they sound. Just very rich and warm. It's hard to explain, you have to hear it. Very happy with those. And then underneath we have 3 units of compression, but there's 6 compressors in those 3 units. One is a Yamaha 2020, GC 2020 that is. And the DBX 166, we have a pair of those. Has some really old vintage Ibanez guitar rack gear, 2 DM1000 digital delays, and also underneath there is the UE400, which is a multi-effects unit. They sound really great, and I will utilize them and have them accessible through the patch bay when I get everything fully wired. Here's the unit I'm retiring. It's virtually brand new, still has the clear plastic over the windows. It's the Alesis HD recorder, hard drive recorder, 24XR. That's the one with the better converters, higher sampling rate up to 96K. It's a great unit. I also have the BRC remote control, which is kind of hidden over here under this rug, and it's in the milk crate. I might sell the Alesis unit, not sure yet. But if you're interested in these screws, I'll definitely sell those to you for a good deal. They're pre-CBS, by the way. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick glance behind the rack gear. I'm not going to get into this too much. It's a mess back here right now, so don't get too discouraged if you see what's involved in rewiring a studio. They all have to be wire tied yet. But you can see the ground cables going and the XLRs, TRS, etc. Again, it's a mess back here right now. It will be all organized once everything is completed. Here's the opposite view of the studio from the rear wall. And there's the two consoles side by side. Okay, now we're going to walk around here without falling, hopefully. There's the hole in the floor we got to watch out for. Okay, so a lot of wiring yet that has to be hooked up. There are wires all over the place here. Most of these wires are hand soldered by myself many years ago when I had my DNR Orion console, which was a 48 input inline console, 4-band sweep EQ. I no longer have that console, but I do have the two consoles behind me. I'll show you briefly, for people who didn't see the previous video, the star ground system, which is employed in this studio. This is something I had employed in the old studio, only these terminal strips were not located here behind this door. They were actually up in the ceiling. That was more centrally located when the racks were alongside the console. Now, of course, the racks are behind the console, so I moved everything over here, which was a real pain. But now it's pretty much hooked up. There's a lot of extra space here on these terminal strips. That's just my my TV box beeping over there, telling me the battery's good. And we do have a dedicated grounding rod in the back of the building here. And that's what this thicker 10 AWG wire is. The other ones are 12 AWG. Okay, let me turn this light off behind me. Here's the opposite view of the studio as you walk in from the outside, because there is an outside entrance to the studio, as well as two doors in here from the inside. And there's one door there, one door way over there by the patch bays. And the patch bays I am hooking up day by day. There's a lot of wires to go yet. And of course, it takes a little bit of time, and you have to troubleshoot if there's any noise, things like that. You basically have to hook up one unit at a time. Otherwise, you'd have to disconnect everything and reinstall them one at a time if you did have an issue with some kind of noise, hum, etc. Virtually, though, using a star ground system eliminates any 60 cycle hum. Also, this studio will employ, just like my older studio, telescoping audio shields. That would be lifting the grounds on one end of the audio connectors. You have to lift the appropriate ground. It depends on where it's being used, whether it's a patch bay or if it's being an input or an output. Basically, all the wires I made are color-coded, so I know which is which. Red is usually input, green is output. Basically, these patch bays are all tied together with where I soldered a bus wire going through each individual PCB. That's part of the star grounding system. It's a lot of work, but you only have to really do that part once. I didn't have to redo it for this studio. I just had to physically move the patch bays. My old racks used to be right up in here. I did reduce the depth of this. It's only about 8 or 9 inches deep now. You couldn't really put anything here except maybe a patch bay. I will put some shelves here or something like that. This is where the laptop will go. Again, here's the Personas 32S. There's the Allen Heath side by side there with it. And I'll give you one more look at the rack system that I just put together. And that would be over here if I can get it all in. Okay, there we go. So we'll give a shout out to my friend Mark, a great engineer from Tennessee. I'll also give a great and warm shout out to my friend James in the UK. We've never met, but he's been very forthcoming with some information because those guys do have a 32S console in their studio, again in the UK. So let me just say hello to them. And maybe like those guys, I'll bring the adopted cat down here, or my 2 dogs, or maybe even some ex-girlfriends. Who knows? Stay tuned. Signing off for now. And I'll give you an update as soon as I get some more stuff wired up. Be well.